So good morning and welcome to the Plug-in America webinar, the first EV drive, generating maximum impact. I am Mary Katherine Campbell, and I will hand it over to our moderator today, Katherine Stainken, Policy Director with Plug-in America.
Great. Thanks, MK. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar. So my name is Katherine Stainken, like MK said, and I'm the Policy Director for Plug-in America. So just a brief note about who we are before we dive right into the webinar. Plug-in America is the voice of the electric vehicle driver, the current driver and the future driver. We have a couple of core areas of focus, such as outreach and education, which is the focus of our webinar today. We do policy work and we also do research. Now, our outreach and education work is all done with the customer in mind, meaning the electric vehicle driver, whether that's the education we're providing to the dealer through the dealer training program, or through our website, or through the different ride and drive events that we do. And of course, Plug-in America is one of the co-organizers for National Drive Electric Week, along with fellow co-organizers, the Sierra Club and the Electric Auto Association. And this year, the National Drive Electric Week was held in September and was our biggest event yet. We had events in all 50 states for the first time ever, over 276 events in major cities and towns across the nation, and the whole event included more than 8,000 test drives of electric cars. So for today's webinar, we're talking about the first electric vehicle drive and generating maximum impact from that first experience. And I'm sure that all of you listening today can recall your first electric vehicle test drive and how you were maybe blown away by the smooth, quiet ride, the instant acceleration, or maybe you were just surprised at how fun and zippy the cars can be to drive. So I'm very excited for our three fabulous speakers today and to hear from them on the lessons learned during their test drives that they've put on. So I will introduce our first speaker now. So Linda Benevides will start us off, and she is currently the Director of Green Business at the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. She has a Master of Science degree from Northeastern University and over 30 years of experience at various environmental agencies. In her current role, she supports Massachusetts-based energy and environmental technology developers by making connections with state, federal funding, and local business development services, providing permitting assistance and understanding of regulatory requirements, and setting up pilot programs to demonstrate the effectiveness of emerging technologies. So we're going to hear about that much more today. And most recently, she's the lead coordinator for setting the state's policies and programs to accelerate the deployment of zero-emission vehicles in Massachusetts. So Linda, I will turn it to you.
Thank you very much, Katherine. So good morning, good afternoon. I just wanted to start out by saying that our governor, Charlie Baker, has made a very strong commitment to supporting zero-emission vehicles to help us reach our climate goals. While we're on target to meet our 2020 plan, we really need to position our policies and programs to meet the 2050 goal, which is 80% greenhouse gas reduction. Our programs are very similar to what other states are doing. We have consumer rebates for the cars, electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid electric, fuel cell vehicles, and zero-emission motorcycles. We have done infrastructure charging grants for workplaces and public and fast charging. We have a number of outreach and information efforts about clean transportation. We have public service announcements. We use social media. We've been participating in auto shows for the past several years. But in my opinion, the most effective and clearly the most fun for me to participate in has been our first state-sponsored test drive campaign that we call Mass Drive Clean. With the help of Plug-in America and Reach Strategies, we've had dozens of events. They're custom tailored. Many of them are at employer locations across the state. We have a lot of public hosts also, like universities, farm festivals, town celebrations, metropolitan planning organization meetings, and at commercial building complexes. We try to target the needs and interests of the hosts, and we also try to get across energy and environmental goals with them. They turn into sustainability events with other vendors, like energy efficiency technologies, solar providers, electric bikes, LED light bulb sales companies. And we have participation from the Sierra Club, for example, to talk about all the environmental issues that are faced by our residents. Slide 2, please. We have great participation by our businesses. The car manufacturers themselves is needed. Our dealers have been really great at coming out to the events. And we've also used our investor-owned and municipal power and light companies to help us with the test drive. So on this slide, you can see why we care about these zero-emission vehicles. We're targeting the transportation sector since it's the largest share of our greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please. This slide gives us some of the statistics, but I just wanted to give you a little background on, kind of what we hear from attendees. People say, yeah, well, I've heard about electric vehicles. They're the future, right? And we're able to say, no, they're here today. And this is just a small sampling of all of the cars that are available. We get to highlight the rebate program so that people know about that and can really understand how that'll drive down the initial cost. People love to drive the cars. It's such fun. If I owned one of these, that'd be really cool. My kids would think I'm pretty cool. My favorite quote from one of our university events is, I never want to own a gas car. We've just really enjoyed talking to people about how important the cars are for our environment, and then we let them experience the fun and performance. But these are the stats that we've had over the past 3 years. And it's the documentation that is important to me to describe why we're putting resources towards it. We survey participants before they get in a car. After they get out of the car, they have tablets handed out to them. The questions are preloaded. They're fairly, straightforward. And then a survey goes out 6 months after the event to find out if there's been any impact. And these are the numbers, and that's what is driving us. 77% of participants had never driven an EV before the test drive. 83% of the participants had a more favorable view of zero-emission vehicles after their drive. And 70% say they were more likely to purchase a car. But then we also get, what's really exciting to me, which is 28% of the survey responders actually visited a dealership to talk about electric vehicles. And 12.5% ended up leasing or buying one within 6 months. So it really is what we need to say these events are really important to our state. Next slide. We're seeing growth. The last number is just half the year, and we're going to definitely have more cars registered this year than in any of the past years. But again, we really need to accelerate growth. Next slide, please. So we are going to continue to have these events. We're going to build it to reach even larger audiences and be more inclusive throughout the state. Not just having it Boston-centric or the eastern part of the state, but reaching rural communities and some of our other locations across the state where we really have not yet had any events. And for those of you that are in the Northeast, the Secretary of Energy and Environment and the Transportation Secretary are going to be holding listening sessions to really try to scale up all of our programs and policies to meet our goal of 300,000 zero-emission vehicles on the road by 2025, and in particular trying to address environmental justice, low-income, and rural community needs. So if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I think our contact information will be here later. Please do, because I'd love to invite you to those meetings. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Linda. I love the leadership role that Massachusetts is taking with outreach and education. It really looks like with your sales numbers that is certainly paying off. So, okay, now we're going to switch to hear the experience on Ride and Drive generating maximum impact from a leading utility in California. So we'll narrow in a little bit. And so we will turn to April Bolduc from San Diego Gas and Electric. April is the electric vehicle customer engagement manager for San Diego Gas and Electric's clean transportation team and has been driving electric for the past 6 years. She focuses on creating strategies that inspire customers to drive electric and participate in the utility's numerous EV programs. April is currently working with her team to install 3,500 EV charging stations at apartments and workplaces, which have the first of its kind hourly rate that takes advantage of renewable energy. April has been helping to coordinate the EV Day San Diego for the past 5 years, and for the last 2 years, it has been named by Plug in America as the largest EV Day event in the world. Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to your presentation, April, so take it away.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here because this is one of my favorite things to talk about, especially when you've been driving electric for as long as I have and trying to convince people to get in the cars. And then when you see them finally do and their face change, the light bulb go off, they get it. It's pretty exciting. And there's good reason to be EV focused. And you can go to the next slide. So for us in California, about 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation. But what's interesting is that in San Diego, it's actually higher than that. So our region is 50% comes from transportation. And our California Governor Jerry Brown's goal is to have 1.50 emission vehicles on state roads by 2025. And for our region, if we're going to achieve that, we're typically about 10% of the state. So we would need to see an adoption rate to meet that goal of about 150,000 cars. And we're currently at 25,000. So just as Linda has said, we're really focused on helping to increase those numbers. But the result, of course, is decreased emissions. In the installation project that Katherine had mentioned that SDG&E is doing, we work a lot with municipalities, and so they are implementing their climate action plans. And a lot of them are realizing that going electric with their fleets, helping their employees to go electric by installing charging is one way to help do that. And they're using EV adoption as one of those key performance indicators. But the good news here is that 43% of SDG&E's energy portfolio comes from renewable energy and no coal. So for somebody like me who does live in a multifamily community and our landlord has not put solar on our rooftop, at least I'm driving on sunshine in that sense. Next slide. And so for the last 5 years, we've been coordinating this National Drive Electric Week with Plug in America, the Sierra Club, and the EV Auto Association. And it's just been amazing to see how it's grown. And what's also grown with that is that over the last 5 years, San Diego Gas and Electric, we've been really able to hone in what we look for in a return on investment. So for the utility, our return on investment is that customers are participating in our programs, they're more educated about electric vehicles, and that they have a positive customer experience. So our programs include the time of use rates, our Power Your Drive charging installation program, an EV climate credit, which is a partnership with our Air Resources Board, where customers will get $200 credit, or EV drivers will get $200 credit on their bill. So when we see events that we've really focused in over the last 5 years take place, we do see an uptick in these particular areas, and that's exactly what we're looking for. For me personally, what I've seen over the last 5 years and the best return on our investment has been National Drive Electric Week, EV Day San Diego, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Also, we partner with our San Diego International Auto Show with the Eco Center. So they actually have an EV-only section that we've been able to help them grow. And in years past, we would get some people walking through there. Last year, we did it all 5 days, and it was absolutely packed the entire time. So we're starting to see this real interest in electric vehicles. Another area is workplace test drives. I can't say enough about the importance of doing workplace test drives. The reason why is because, and this is where we started. So in coordination with Plug-in America. And, where should we start these EV test drives? We went to the workplaces because it tends to be easier to do there. And when you have an employer that's supportive, they'll help market that program for you to their employees. Also, we partnered with Plug-in America on dealership training, and the feedback from that training has been phenomenal. We surveyed the dealerships that went through it. They learned more about EV time of use rates. They learned more about, how to properly sell the cars. And I'm just really excited about that particular program. And then we also have our SDG&E employee race to 500. And that's a key part, is don't forget about your employees. So the same things that we do externally, we do internally. So our race to 500 is to have 500 employees driving electric by 2020. And we are 3 away from number 400, so which is pretty exciting. But like I said, if we're doing ride and drives out in the community, we want our employees to be able to talk about electric vehicles and be well-versed right from the get-go. Next slide. So let's talk about National Drive Electric EV Day San Diego. Each year, and this has been since the beginning, and we've found this to be the sweet spot, we only focus in 3 particular areas for our event, because when you have a large event, it's easy to start going off and, oh, let's add this, let's add that, but we really keep it to these 3 areas. One is the test drives, the dealerships are there, and then we're also doing surveys of our customers. We have an EV tailgate where we invite EV drivers down to share their experiences. And I really love how Plug-in America has been able to coordinate their website so that us planners can see who's signing up, what types of cars are coming. So it really gives you real-time information that the marketing effort that you're doing is working. And then lastly is our EV community. So the EV community is where there's charging vendors, there's hourly EV 101 talks. This year we had an electric school bus displayed. SDG&E has an electric bucket truck. We had that on display. And then we also offer electric bike rides. We have a local bike shop come down and they take care of that whole thing. Next slide. So our EV Day San Diego partners are key. So SDG&E's function is we manage the overall event, the logistics, we do the media relations, advertising, and we mostly fund the event. CleanTech San Diego, they have a awesome e-blast list of members of about 2,000 people, and this is really up their alley as far as the members go and who we're looking to target. And they also help to manage the online dealership sign-up. Center for Sustainable Energy is an amazing partner of ours, and they run point for National Drive Electric Week as the main organizer, and then they manage the volunteers. They do flyer and signage design. So as you can see, as we go along here, each organization has a specific role, and our role is to really project manage these groups. Plug-in America and Reach Strategies, they conduct the driver experience survey. And I can't say enough about the importance of the survey results. And as Linda said, it's just really demonstrates the return on investment that you're doing when you host these events. We also partner with the San Diego Fire Rescue Foundation. So they have what they call Safe City for Kids, and firefighters, volunteer firefighters come out and the kids get in a little electric track and they can drive around on these little cars, but the firefighters teach them what to do at a stop sign and a railroad crossing. So there is something for kids there. And then, of course, the Electric Auto Association, also a fantastic partner because they host our EV tailgate with all of our EV drivers. The key thing that I love about the EV tailgate is, let's say you've never been in an electric car, you can go over to the EV tailgate and you can talk to other drivers, hear their own experience. You don't have to talk to a dealership. So that's pretty exciting. Next slide. So in talking about the results, just this past year in September, We had 1,800 attendees show up at our event. So this photo was taken right at the beginning. We had 1,400 of them take test drives, which is just an unbelievable number. When we first started these, you know, it was a couple hundred, then 500 and 1,000, and now we're up to 1,400 test drives. And this doesn't even include those that are jumping in the back seat and of passengers, which is great. We had 200 EV drivers in our EV tailgate, and the outstanding media coverage that we received really helps us to increase the participation in our programs, because if we want to go back to what our goals are, that's really for the utility. Those are our goals. The dealership survey results came in that the dealers would definitely be back next year, and after the event, immediately following the event when it closes, we go around and we hand all the dealers a paper form, because their feedback is some of the most important, because they're there with all of their customers. So that is crucial. And then I mentioned the driver survey with Plug-in America and also Reach Strategies, and that test drive survey, you know, 53% of those drivers were first-time EV drivers. And then 87% of those said they would purchase or lease an EV. And that right there just demonstrates the success of the event. And in the end, we did see a spike in program signups for our programs. And I put 2 tips on here. Something that's worked really well for us. And a lot of time people think, oh, we want to get coverage the day of the event. But the key thing is get media coverage the week before. Go do the in-studio interviews and bring an electric car, because that's really where you're going to see the biggest bang for your buck to drive attendance. And then also, we offer something to the first 100 attendees. So we give them a $10 voucher for lunch. And sure enough, as the mayor is speaking and all of our VIPs are on stage and we're kicking off, we have a massive line to get in, which is exciting. Next slide. So if you're new to test drives, the 3 top takeaways that I would recommend are focus on the workplace test drives. Again, you are having the company market your test drive directly to employees, so you really save on any advertising dollars. The surveys are a must. You have a captive audience. A lot of them love to come out on their lunch break. That is a key thing that you have to have. Otherwise, you're not going to know the success of your programs. And lastly, to leverage your partnerships. We like to keep our partners, you know, less is more, and the effective ones really rise and shine to the top, which is why we've had these same partners for so long. Next slide. And that's it for me.
Wow, thank you so much, April. That was a fantastic presentation, and I just will be the first to congratulate you on 1,400 test drives in one day. That is by far a record. I can't even, that's just incredible. That's a huge number.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
And then you also have nearly 400 employees driving electric already. So, wow, that's amazing. So great. Well, I know we're going to have a lot of questions for you. So we'll get to our 3rd speaker, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So now we're going to learn from Kirk Brown on the best practices from doing hundreds of ride and drive. So Kirk, he joins us from Reach Strategies, and he has worked with Plug-in America for over 5 years on a host of issues related to organizational development, outreach, and most recently, building out brand-neutral EV outreach campaigns for states and utilities. Kirk helped Plug-in America pivot to emphasizing the positives about electric vehicles for new consumers, really to help consumers overcome confusion and hesitation about EVs. And Reach Strategies, through work led by Amanda Scarborough, has likely delivered more brand-agnostic test drive experiences with EVs than any other entity in the country. So Kirk, we are ready to gain your wisdom.
No, well, I don't know how much I have to offer after what we've heard. It's really great to be here with Linda and April, and having seen what the state of Massachusetts and San Diego Gas and Electric have done. And of course, all of us have a lot of gratitude to Plug in America, which has been just doing such, good work in this space for such a long time. And kudos, by the way, to Katherine and MK and Joel and Eric and the entire team at Plug in America, which has really grown in its capacity in the past few years and is just doing such tremendous work. So it's just great to be here. Reach Strategies is a cause-based communications firm. And in the EV space, we've been really focused on this experiential piece of introducing people to electric vehicles. And on the next slide, we look at the scale of the opportunity. We can see why. We have over 263 million passenger vehicles registered in the United States, and the Plug in America counter is now up to a little over 700,000 EVs on the road. So the scale of what's ahead of us is just tremendous if we're going to get as many people as we can into these vehicles and achieve our climate and clean air goals in the process. So it's great today to spend some time talking about what these test drives can accomplish and what some considerations that go into them. I do want to put a pin on safety first. The most important thing we think in doing this work is that all of these test drives are incident free. So that means every test drive course is mapped. We always prefer right turns. And we only really need a 1 to 3 mile circuit to give people the experience that they're going to take away then having had that first test drive. We also want to go where the fish are. This sensibility is really about being clear about our goals for the event. Sometimes we're doing outreach that's about garnering lots of exposure. Let's get as many people as we can into the vehicles. Other times it's really about conversion. Let's see how many of these people we can actually introduce to the vehicle for the first time and have them follow through to doing that first sale or lease of a vehicle. So our clarity about goal is going to define then where we're going to be. Are we going to be at a workplace, in a community setting, in a college, or with key stakeholders? So just a key consideration as you think about selection for your test drive events. Once we know where we're going, the timeline we've seen, and this slide just talks about some of the ingredients we've seen that really go into a good event. And so you want a good, strong sponsoring partner. You want the entire EV category on display, and you want a good location for where people can actually dig into the vehicles and really experience that first drive. On timeline, what we've found is that the entire process from beginning to end, once a host is established, can really happen over the course of, let's call it 5 weeks. We want a few weeks for pre-event communications to really build out the footprint of what's happening and get people aware. We want to spend some time after the event doing follow-up work to understand what the impact of the experience was for people. But when you really look at it, we're really building out maybe a 30-minute experience for people so that they can come in, get registered, and then flow through their test drive and have the opportunity to talk to people about the vehicles. One thing that we found with our work is that an event footprint is really important. So the next slide will look at what some of those have looked like. And what we mean by footprint is creating a delineated area that captures the energy and creates a focus for the test drive work that's going to be happening. You see a host of different footprint approaches here. I don't know that I would say that any particular approach is necessarily better than another, but on balance, we've found that having a clearly identifiable professional setting that's holding the test drive experience is really important to bring consumers along, provide a platform for education, and also provide for the safety considerations that I mentioned earlier. Once our event is set and we know where we're going to be, we want to promote it as much as we possibly can. And that's going to range from having physical displays on particular locations before the event so that people can see what's coming. Of course, using a range of media tactics, be it the earned media approaches that April mentioned to, a range of social media. We also want to use our ability to attract stakeholders and other event components to actually boost the energy and enthusiasm of the event. So at times when we can, we'll build out entire lifestyle fairs around this notion of driving electric and what it looks like to just be lighter on air pollution and global warming with your lifestyle. A new dimension of this that's just crucial is how we can now work with dealers that we've started calling e-dealers, which is, the auto dealerships that are best equipped to actually support the sales of EVs. And there are some really important and interesting new programs here, in particular the E-Star program coming out of Plug in America, where dealers are now receiving focused trainings on promoting their EVs. And this has happened in both San Diego and Massachusetts. And those dealers are able to bring their vehicles out and really see firsthand the impact of what it's like to introduce brand new customers to their vehicles. And then once we get to the site the day of, and we can talk about this a lot more if people have questions, but the day of management is so crucial in terms of ensuring both a safe experience, but also an experience that delivers a really powerful opportunity for people to have that first test drive, that first EV experience. So the safety first consideration is having clearly mapped out and separated areas for people to get in and out of vehicles. Nobody gets into a car to drive unless they've documented their driver's license and they've signed a waiver for the event. We use wristbands to clarify for the participating dealers and car companies that we have actually people who are ready to, come into the vehicles because they've been adequately cleared. We also provide, wherever we can, a professional escort into and out of the vehicle so that we're literally walking you through this entire process beginning to end. And then every ride and drive that we produce includes a professional person in the vehicle, in the passenger seat, along with the driver. And we definitely love ride-alongs. We'd love the opportunity for people to not only drive the vehicles, but also to experience the drive inside as passengers, because that fun and excitement, that first impression, it generates such great opportunities for conversation when people are in the vehicles. And then finally, wherever possible, we can't stress enough the importance of having surveys that go along with all of this work. A tablet-based survey that can be quickly and easily implemented, that captures that first impression before anybody's gotten into a vehicle, and then immediately captures that person when they come out to track the impact of the test drive, has just been absolutely crucial. And, the tracking data nationally, it's interesting, out of April's event in San Diego, that we're now hitting maybe a 53% first drive mark in a market like San Diego, where we've been, much longer in the field and have more options. In other parts of the country, we see more like 80 or 90% first-time driver rates. So it's just a signal of the kind of work that's ahead in terms of giving as many people as possible their first exposure to a vehicle. And then finally, I would underscore that we've seen repetition is also a powerful ingredient here. So the market continues to evolve every year. It's just so exciting to see what continues coming into market in terms of new vehicles, new options for different consumers. We love having all of the vehicles together because it shows consumers that there can be a vehicle for them, irrespective of their, whatever their income situation might be or what their household or their lifestyle needs might be. And as that market changes year to year, the opportunity to go back to particular locales and have this conversation repeatedly with certain groups of folks is just a really great opportunity to keep them abreast of what's happening, and I think also helps boost our conversion rates. So with that, I think that's everything from us. I'm certainly happy to participate in the Q&A, and just again, want to say it's been just an honor for us. And Amanda Scarborough is on this call. She's probably one of the leading experts in the country on this topic too, but just the opportunity to work with folks in Massachusetts and San Diego and various states and with Plug in America has just been tremendous. So it's great to be here with everybody today.
Great, thank you, Kirk. That's a lot of valuable information, and I know I was taking notes as you were speaking there. So, and thank you again to Linda and April. So let's now move to some of the questions going in. We've got a little bit of time for questions, and we'll try to get to all of them, but if we don't, you can be sure that we'll follow up after the webinar. And of course, the slides will be available after the presentation. So, okay, so we have one question here, looks like, about selecting the candidates. So, April, you mentioned the workplace as a great place to start, and I know, Kirk, you've done a lot of workplace events as well. So is there something you look for in a candidate? Is there something that you're looking at in the workplace candidate to select them to host the ride and drive?
Yeah, for us, I would say that we are looking for, and we do this research ahead of time. So we're looking for companies that have a large amount of employees in the hundreds, because we know that only a portion of them are actually going to come out to the event. And our goal is to get, a couple hundred test drives at some of these companies. And so then we kind of narrow it down, or who is more sustainably focused or has a type of a program that they're communicating to employees about the importance of this and would be more likely to participate. So coupling that with Kirk and Amanda's knowledge as far as the function of the ride and drive has been a successful partnership for us.
And I'd love to hear Linda talk about this too from Massachusetts. And at April in San Diego, some of the annual workplace events there have just been so tremendous. In addition to size, and Amanda, chime in here if you've got thoughts too, but certainly we want enough of a critical mass in terms of the size of the host facility. We've also seen a really strong dovetail here with corporate CSR initiatives. So we kind of like to explore that linkage between a company that's trying to do maybe a host of different things on environment. The electric vehicle conversation just gives people who kind of a whole new opportunity to extend that CSR sensibility across their employees. But Linda or Amanda, anything else you want to chime in terms of workplace selection or targeting?
No, I agree with everything that's been said. This is Linda. We like working with universities because they do also have the ability to reach out to parent organizations, the professors and employees at the university, as well as the students. So it just adds another dimension to something that could be considered workplace, but brings in a lot of different age groups and people.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just willing hosts, I think, is the most important piece of this. Having a host that's really involved and is really willing to push the promotion of the event is a very key piece of this. But large workplaces and public events, having that willingness to really be involved in the process as far as promotion goes is really important.
Okay. Great. This next question then is about going back to the dealer involvement with the ride and drives. And I know this was touched upon there by, I think, all of you. So can you clarify the dealer experience and the Plug in America training? Which comes first? Are the dealers educated about electric vehicles and then invited to the ride and drive, or how does that work?
For SDG&E, we didn't have the training when we started out. So we really see that the training makes such a huge impact, but then in addition to that, it really makes partners with the dealerships. So those are the dealerships that now we go to who understand more about electric vehicles, and we invite them to our events. So they're able to help create a better experience in general, but we did not start out that way.
Mm-hmm. Similar in Massachusetts, we have a really active auto dealers association who's been really a great partner in helping us identify dealerships early on. But I think Amanda and the REACH team has a good relationship now with those dealers, so they know who to reach out to. We try to make sure we have all types of cars at these events, all the way from the higher end BMWs to all of the vehicles. Ford, for example, those are really popular. People, they're familiar with the models. So our dealers have been really very good, and I think the eStar training that Plug in America has offered is really going to help them sell more of the cars. So really re-engage them.
Okay, wow. There are so many questions coming in now. This is great. Okay, this next question there is focused on the low income and rural areas. So my question has my state has a huge focus on providing electric vehicles to low income and rural communities. How can we target these areas best through the ride and drives? Linda, do you want to maybe touch upon that, since you mentioned Massachusetts is going to be focusing on that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we have not yet been done that we have on our plan is to go to malls, because a lot of the employees at malls, are minimum wage earners. There's a group, Northeast Drive Electric, that is looking at doing that. Because we're a state agency, I can reach out to our agricultural agency for, the farm fresh festivals, and we've done the garlic festival, always one of my favorite events. We also have Green Community Program, where communities in Massachusetts sign up if they agree to do energy efficiency and green transportation. They're eligible for certain grants and assistance. But they've been really helpful in reaching out to employers and, from the community perspective, to get out in the rural areas. We have transportation planning organizations too that are helpful to reach businesses along, that are members of their commuting programs. So those are some of the things we use. We need to do more, and so that's another reason for these listening sessions. How can we do that?
And for SDG&E, one of the things that we did was we had a listening session. So we called them our innovation networking events. And we went around to a bunch of different communities and just invited some of our partners in and talked to them about electric cars and said, hey, what do you think about us having a EV ride and drive here? What do you like about the cars? What don't you like about the cars? They really helped us shape what those EV test drives would do in a disadvantaged community. But what's an awesome success story is that we had an event, and a pastor of a church, he led this effort. We had an event, Plug-in America was there doing the surveys, and we had hundreds of people attend this event. And this was in a location, where there hasn't just been a lot of requests for EV ride and drives. And so the pastor led the charge there, and that turned out to be so successful. We just, we're thrilled about it. We brought in some local dealerships, Amanda and Reach and Plug-in America did, and it was awesome.
And I think it's you really can see when you do these events, the clean economy is an inclusive economy. The vehicles themselves address air pollution that always preys on, very often, you can almost track socioeconomics based on where the pollution is going. So I think that, our faith community gives us good channels. Our multi-unit dwellings gives us good channels across a host of different communities. I think we have a more robust market now in terms of having more vehicles that represent a more diverse range of price points for people. But I also think there's two other considerations here. We know that when people have availability to charging, it just radically enhances their ability to get into the vehicles. And so, working through the issues involving getting charging into multi-unit dwellings can be very helpful here. We've also had the experience of doing a number of events at workplaces, but lower hourly waged workplaces that were installing workplace charging for their employees. And to tell you, these are some of the best events we've ever done, because people were basically recognizing that they were going to be able to get out of paying for gasoline to get to and from work. And that was going to have a material positive benefit for them in terms of their household budget when they thought about the total cost of transportation involved with getting to their job. So I think that there are a number of pathways we have through every community to now talk about these vehicles and what they mean. I do want to caution that I don't think there's really any low-hanging fruit in this market, in the sense that background awareness is so low that I think we need to make certain that we're doing this work across all categories and with all people. And so I think we need to work with every community in the right way and in the appropriate way so that we can bring everybody into the market as quickly as possible.
Okay. This is a question maybe for Kirk, or actually maybe for everybody. How do you handle brand neutrality?
Yeah, and actually that's a good question for Amanda too, who's probably one of the top experts on this. But I like to say that we're conducting a campaign that's really a coalition of the willing. So we want everybody we want to invite everybody, and we want to have participation from everybody who's willing to come out. But Amanda, do you have anything more to add in terms of how we manage for brand neutrality?
Yeah, absolutely. So as with Mass Drive Clean, the campaign as a whole and the event is under the auspice of Mass Drive Clean and that branding. We work with both local dealerships as well as corporate level OEM contacts to obtain vehicles for each event. And we strive to have no fewer than 3 separate brands represented at an event. Larger events can have upwards of 15 different brands represented. And so that's what really counts for brand neutrality, is ensuring that these vehicles, we have multiple brands represented and they can be compared side by side. And it's really important to have more than, 2 brands is okay, but we really strive to have no fewer than 3. On average, our events have anywhere between 5 to 8 brands represented at an event.
Okay, anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Well, from a state perspective, we have to be brand neutral. For example, we're seeing the Toyota Mirai be available in the state, so we're trying to get that vehicle to our events. But we cannot promote one brand over another, so we just really try to get as many at an event as we can.
Okay. This next question is kind of a 2-part question. So the question is, I'm in Florida and there are no EV-friendly dealerships near me. What if I rallied other EV drivers to come and show off their cars? And then how would I handle that insurance? Maybe Kirk or Amanda.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's great. In fact, that's basically the genesis for National Drive Electric Week, was really having drivers themselves get out and show their vehicles. So I think that the insurance considerations then for drivers who want to kind of host their own parties around this, there's a couple that I would think through. First, I'd want to make certain that I was clear whether or not I had any site-specific insurance needs I needed to think through. So I know that when we're doing test drive work in any setting, be it public or private, we always attend to that piece of it. What's the broader insurance consideration given the site where we're located? And then for the drivers themselves, they need to make certain that the insurance they're carrying for their personal vehicle is going to cover somebody, if they're going to let somebody else drive their vehicle. I think we found that very often personal drivers can have that kind of insurance, but I wouldn't assume you have it. I'd want to make sure that you check that. And then finally, maybe a minor seeming detail, but I would just underscore not missing this piece. Please don't let anybody drive your car who's not registered to drive your car. So really make sure that you've seen their driver's license. These are the kind of details that we want to make sure we don't, accidentally miss and then have a negative incident happen that might, color an otherwise positive event for folks.
Okay. This next question then is for Linda and April and Kirk. Is there a particular message that you feel works best in planning for the ride and drives and getting the attendees to sign up? So April, you mentioned there that the first 100 attendees get something, but is there a particular message that you feel also works really well?
For us, we focus on just the fun and excitement of the event, as well as the incentives and deals from dealerships. So a combination of those 2 things seem to resonate. We have noticed that more families have been coming. So when you're doing a larger event with 1,800 people, you have to think about all of those things. But if you're doing a workplace or a smaller event, that just standard broad messaging, I think, is key about the incentives, and just they're really fun to drive.
Yeah, and I would say also it is a combination, like April said, of talking about the incentives to bring down the cost of the cars, to have other technology vendors there to make it into kind of a fun event. Amanda's been great at getting food trucks to show up, so it does become a reason to stay around and talk. All those make it kind of, as you said, April, a fun day.
Anything else, Amanda, you'd add on that?
No, I think you guys covered most of it. Yeah, just really ensuring for public events, especially, those that are held on weekends, you're going to have children in attendance. So really planning for that and making sure there's activities, family-friendly activities. Having a food component is a huge help in drawing people out. We've had everything from face painters to food trucks, petting zoos at events. So there's lots of different ways, and that time actually for those vendors was donated to our event. So we've been able to find some really great partners across the states that we work in. Just really putting some thought into that component for public events is important.
And April has a great video of the EV Day from San Diego where April, I think there's a video clip of kids in mini EVs driving around.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the Safe City done by the firefighter volunteers. So that's really been a key feature for us. And to be able, as Amanda says, to have that organization completely organize it, it's at no cost to us, but it still just adds such a tremendous value to the event.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, well, we're nearing the end of our time here, but we'll take just a couple more questions here, and I think maybe we're even running over time. This question, we've had a couple questions come in on the budget and how much, in April you talked about the ROI. So can you give a ballpark on kind of the budget?
Sure, and it really just depends on what your focus is. So I'll give you an example, kind of 3 different levels. So you can do something where you're, bringing in dealers and you're creating an event that's quote unquote, free or no cost, but it does take a lot of time to coordinate. So that's one thing that I would point out is that, for me, that time is money. Middle of the ground would be outsourcing it. So you could spend, $10,000 or less. Just depending on how big you want to make kind of that small contained event, or you can spend upwards of $80,000. So maybe for you, getting 2,000 people at one event and doing that all in one time, and maybe it's just an annual event that you do, maybe that's where your ROI is. Or like I said, maybe it's in the workplaces where you're just starting out. So you have funds, but you want to be able to spread them out throughout the year. So then that's kind of the 3 ways that I would look at it is, what do you have time to do? And for us, we're able to demonstrate that ROI, even with each of those levels that we demonstrate. Another thing too, I would say that Kirk said that I thought was very important is it's important to have a professional look to the event. So if you're planning on, not having a budget for the event, there really does need to be a professional look. So that's why I would always include a budget, if you can, for that professional look and for the surveying, because those are 2 key things that you want to be asked back, and you want to demonstrate that you are really putting on this rock star event.
Okay, anyone else want to chime into that?
No, I think
okay,
that's
this
great.
Is another question. Okay, we've got one question for Linda here. So what advice do you have for states looking to do outreach and education programs? Where do you even start? Surveying the drivers might be one first. Surveying the drivers might be one approach, or do you just jump into the test drives and then begin to survey the drivers after that?
Yeah, it is during the events that, you get the opportunity to talk to people about, why the cars are important, how many models there are, the rebates that are available for them. So I think, using and Reach Strategies has done a great job of getting the word out. So they've already done a lot of that, outreach to get people to show up. And it's our job to talk to them and make sure that they're aware of what's out there and the resources that are available to them from the state.
Okay, Kirk, anything to add?
No, I think that's great. That covered it.
Okay. We've got time for 2 more questions, and just a reminder to all attendees that yes, this webinar is recorded, and my colleague MK, she will send out the link sometime later today. So question for April, actually for everybody too. Have you considered whether you can expand the ride and drive to people that can't make it the day of the event? For example, such as providing a voucher or something to go so the person can go directly to the dealer and get the test drive.
Yes, so I think what we tend to see, even just from our marketing of the event, you kind of get this flow over effect. So we do see an increase in people heading to the dealerships after the event. But as far as, say, if it's something as big as EV Day, do we do a next one? We don't typically do that, but I think where that would come in, it very importantly would be in the workplace ride and drives, that you keep those going and that you're building a buzz that way, because then you can stretch your budget over a longer period of time. But with an electric vehicle day, depending on how big you want to go, it just depends on if you have a budget to be able to put that event on again, or even follow up with a smaller one. I do actually really like your idea about some type of a voucher and a way to communicate that out. So I'll have to think about how that would work, but I love that idea.
Well, and another place that can show up sometimes too is the car companies will show up with special incentives that they've designed around that day or that event. And sometimes that will include a code or a tag or something that can be handed out at the event, and then people can take that with them to whatever dealer is participating in that special and actually redeem that not only for the test drive, but also maybe some special incentives for the vehicle too. So that's another way that sensibility can get built into events.
Okay, we've got this last question here, and then we'll close out our webinar. So this is kind of a fun question for everybody. What's the most memorable statement that you can remember a driver making after the test drive?
That's great.
Yeah.
Amanda,
Linda, what's the most memorable statement?
I can't pull out a single one, but it's actually not from a test driver. It's from a dealership. We work closely with a dealership in Massachusetts, and we have had just an unbelievable amount of support from them, and they fully back our events. They come out to everyone. And this year, I mean, and it wasn't always that way. We had to build a relationship with them and get them on board. But over this past year, the representative who comes out to every event has said that he has just tripled the amount of EVs that he sells. And the time it takes him to sell an electric vehicle has just been cut in half. Consumers, he used to sell maybe 1 or 2 volts a month, and now he sells 2 to 4 volts or volts a month. And it's tremendous that he has seen such a return on investment in participating in the events. And I think for our standpoint, to know that consumers, and I actually just in passing have met several people who have bought cars from him. And so it's really building a community around this. And that's a really rewarding piece for me. But I can't pull out a specific comment that a driver has said, other than thank you. We really appreciate you doing this and providing this opportunity, and that we hear almost every time. But yeah.
And I have a couple. One from a driver who said, my wife dragged me down here and you'd never catch me in an EV, and now I'm actually going to go get one. So kind of, totally turning that person around. And then I think one of the first EV ride and drives that we did for National Drive Electric Week, I had one of the dealerships from Fiat, the electric 500e. She came running over and she said, my manager called and he said I need to get back to our studio, to our dealership. And I said, what? Why? It's not even over. She said, it's so packed. Everyone is leaving here and going to buy the car, and they can't handle the traffic. Wow. So I'm like, that is a fantastic problem to have.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I guess one of the ones that embarrasses me the most is, you know, you say you want to do 20 events this year. We really need to be doing 200 events. And that was from one of our vendors. But I do love the students and talking to them about, you know, I just want the highest technology available, and that's what these cars offer me. I never want to drive a gasoline or own a gasoline car. And then the parent that comes up to me and says, I'm looking for a car for a graduation gift, and I think I found it today. So, could you adopt me is my response. But
Right.
Enthusiastic. It's just a whole lot of fun.
And I remember one of our very first test drives at scale, where hundreds of test drives are going off. The thing about all these cars is they're just silent. And so you have car after car leaving this test drive line, and there's none of that background noise, and people coming up and literally saying, I can't believe it. They can't believe what they're seeing. And it's just so fun because, yep, once you see it, you can't believe it. So that would be mine.
Great. Well, thank you again to all of our speakers today. And just a quick reminder to everybody that if you want to host your own ride and drive, I mean, you can participate as National Drive Electric Week City Captain, and National Drive Electric Week is set for September 8th to the 16th, 2018. So thank you again, Linda, April, Kirk, Amanda, MK, and the slides will be available later sometime today. MK will send that out along with the recording of the webinar. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.